Hello, and before this cold becomes a proper cold and I lose my voice, I thought I'd do another little update on my top-down Lemmingsy tower defensey sort of indie game, let's call it that. Before I do anything else, let's have a little look how it is. So you can see I've got an inventory bar now with different selectable objects. Middle mouse now switches between the camera modes. These are the spawns. Let's just get one going. Oh, and I'll get out of their way. That's a work in progress. So I've got a beacon, which in theory attracts the survivors to help guide them on the path. So you put one there, and you have sort of line of sight is the idea. My current iteration of thinking on how they behave is they'll sort of wander aimlessly and pursue different dead ends until they find the right one, but putting beacons down and them running into people who've gone to the dead ends will help them to get to the right place. And there will be a time limit so that you want to avoid their sort of random chaotic behaviour, which will be the norm, and that will get them all killed. So that's the basic sort of game type here. There's another thing, which is a wall. And you can see I've got two of those left. They don't quite cover the gap there, but it can affect things. And when you place the last one, it becomes deactivated. Can't select that. So you can see you can place things, and there's that little progress bar taken from one of the free progress bar things from the marketplace. Thank you, Epic, and the people who made it. Can't remember, sorry. This is a simple mesh. These are all placeholders, and you can place the stuff, and you can pick it up again. Same process, but in reverse. And now I've got a wall. I can switch between them again. And the same goes with that. And these are activatable, and if they're outside the range, it'll run to them. And if you want to place things, it'll wait till you're in range. And you can drag the mouse around to determine the angle it goes at. And if you mess up, you can have another go. And it should, and you can cancel by letting go or pressing the select button, and it should, stop you placing those. I don't know why that happened. And it's placing those again. So now I'm confused. Anyway, so that's a basic overview of where it's at. So the inventory slots system and the placing and picking up things, and I think relative to last time, the actual clicking on things. And there you can see the sort of area of effect is shown. I don't think I really liked that effect, but I was trying to get something that sort of only was visible towards the outside of it. Just for some decals. So that's the basic system. I'll very quickly, I never very quickly do anything, do I? Just go through how I've structured these things to explain how I've done it. This is by no means the best way or a good way. I should clarify, I am basically learning this stuff as I'm going along, so I've probably done some things which are stupid in hindsight. I will try and flag that up in the description as and when I come to those realizations. So please don't take this as gospel or useful or helpful, but if you, like me, haven't really done this kind of thing before and just wanted some vague ideas of where to look for stuff and where might be a useful place to put stuff, I hope this is helpful. Anyway, so I'm going to switch to this list, super high-tech video editing. So the top-down character blueprint I've shown you a bit before. This is the thing that gets created in the top-down blue template that Epic did. I should probably change the names, but for now I won't because that'll be confusing. So the character and the controller. The character is really defining the mesh, and for whatever reason that contains the code to put the cursor where the mouse is pointing. I have extended that to change the cursor depending on what you're pointing at and so on. The top-down controller, it's not friendly AI, it's not anime AI, it's not AI at all, it's just the bits of code that control the movement and the commands, and the bits that don't really fit into there. There is probably a more over a general principle for these things, but that's basically So if you click somewhere and it runs to it, that's dealt with by the controller, and I've extended that to hell with the placement of the inventory and things, and I shall extend it further. It's now an unholy mess. I will have to refactor it probably. Let's bring it across. So this is my event graph. Begin playing, initialize inventory. I've got the inventory, I'll come back to that, as a component. To be honest, components have never worked out too well for me, but I'm running with this one for now. It's only used once, so it's fairly pointless to make it a whole component. But anyway, switching between the next item and previous items just calls routines in that component. This is the main sort of, you click somewhere, what happens. No, this is the tick. So this is just terrible. And I've hacked in bits to deal with moving places to activate, moving places to place, moving places to pick up. And if you're in the middle of picking up or placing something, so it stops you moving places, it just keeps you doing the thing you're supposed to be doing with these sort of little branches off there. And then this is the bare bones of what was in the original blueprint. I've changed the layout a bit to try and make it more sane, and I've abstracted out some bits into these things. It marginally supports touch and VR, but I haven't really maintained that at all, so that's going to be totally broken. So it only works with the sort of mouse clicks. I've still got it only mouse clicks, which I'm quite pleased with. I think the control system's not bad, so let's just play this. Oh, that's not done that before. Yeah, broken. Let's stick with that. So, oh, this is very exciting. You probably can't see the inventory because I got the wrong video format. Yeah, so mouse up and down, mouse wheel up and down rather, switches the inventory, middle button zooms in and out, left click moves or activates, and right click places or dismantles. And other things are sort of context sensitive. You can hover over some things. Some things can be activated from a distance, some only close up, and so on. But that's all controlled by the mouse. Those are my mouse controls. I'm quite pleased with that. Yes, that's a mess. Down here is even worse. Oh my god. I need to put some comments in and things. But this gets the left click, the right click rather, is the place item click. And it's nasty, but I've got it branching off for placing and picking up and having different sort of chains going off there, which do more or less the same thing with some subtle variations. So if you're dismantling, it starts as complete and goes to 0, and if you're placing, it goes from 0 to 1, and so on. And lots of little exceptions for things, so that some things can be placed immediately, some need a countdown timer, and it should work with both. So there's a lot of logic like that tucked in here. There's a little bit of check if you're overlapping, and if you are overlapping anything, then don't place the thing. That sort of works, but you have to set lots of other things to generate overlap events. So the static stuff in the level, which will be proper meshes in due course, that has to be set to generate overlap events. Otherwise the placement will place into the walls. That's probably adding a lot of overheads and slowdowns. Okay, one important aspect is when you place a wall, let's see if I can get this working. So they normally come down there, but I'm going to place a wall. I'll try just placing one big wall there. I'm going to place another wall just to make sure. And I'm going to place a wall out here. So you can see that they don't take that path and they go around. So the static mesh, let me just show navigation. This has cut out bits of the mesh, which is what I wanted. The red stuff, I mean, who knows. But if I go to the wall and take the wall off, hopefully this will change their behaviour. Let us see. So there we go. So it dynamically updates the mesh. It does it in the most dynamic way possible, which is very computationally intensive. It does seem to just do it for a section like that. So it's doing some stuff under the hood. that might be enough for them to come through. I think I've finished spawning. So it does what it needs to do, but it might need to be re-optimized. I tried doing dynamic obstacles where rather than recomputing the mesh, it just changes the weights of bits of the mesh, but that was a complete and utter failure. It didn't seem to do anything. So I may need to come back to that. And to make that do that, I think actually setting the mesh to block actors is enough with a dynamic navigation mesh just to do it. However, I had added in the, let's find my wall. Where will I find a wall? I'm totally lost. Deep voice, placeables. So my wall placeable. Why not? Is a wall, and I've added this nav modifier component, which kind of applies to the whole thing. Didn't work. I think it sort of uses a collision for that, or for that. I don't know. Didn't really work. But obstacle. I tried null, but it didn't work. So needs a bit of work. So it might be you don't need that. And what I did was find this. Let's see, nav. Recast nav mesh default. I don't know if that's a thing that's always there or was generated automatically. Okay, well we want that. And I changed it to runtime generation dynamic rather than static. That didn't work. Static won't work at all. So that's what you've got to change to make that work. But it will regenerate things, and for bigger levels it may be just too slow. And there's a material that it swaps into, which is just a translucent material with a refractive index that varies. Let's place a wall so you can see. So you can see the arrow. It sort of has a slightly dappled effect. That's just me varying the refraction with a noise texture. Yeah. Anyway, so what else to show you? The inventory component, it just has stuff that stores things in arrays and interfaces with the HUD, which is the inventory bar widget blueprint. I followed a tutorial by somebody I should have remembered the name of, but I can't remember. That doesn't work. So I've got two things that use widgets, and I've never used widgets before. The first thing is when you're placing something, there's that little blah, 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 blah thing. Yeah, I won't bother with that. That's demonstrated. This is my HUD thing. So I don't fully understand what I'm doing would be the understatement of the year. These things are anchored to the bottom left, so whatever size the screen is, this will come bottom left. I've manually placed these, they're not quite right. I find this editor a bit of a nightmare. You can see it's not quite right, but it's right enough. Colour scheme of a sort of blued out thing. There is this tint. All my icons are black and white, big stroke widths. I need to redo a few of them, but so it works quite well as a visual sort of thing. And there's these text things. Text things by default are just static bits of text that you can change here. I of course want to change this dynamically. These are the numbers you press to activate these slots. That's my concession to non-mouse stuff if you want to jump from 1 to 5, whatever. This is the numbers you have there. And what I did, you'll see here, is just to create a binding. There may be a better way to do this, and if there is, I'd be happy to see it, but I've done it now. I've had to create for each one a separate binding, which, when you go to your graph, is a separate function. I tried to minimize the amount I've had to put into each function, but basically I've just cut and paste this with a hard-coded slot number. I mean, this is horrible, but I can't see an easy way around this. I don't know widgets enough to know if there's a better way. And these slots are the images. And in my event graph, yeah, I've not used this. You can use this to animate stuff and do things. So get text is, yeah. So this thing abstracts everything. And so I have an internal array of item counts which is updated by external things. And this is accessed by the inventory component. So and this basically, if you've got a number that's not 0, put x plus the number, and if it's 0, just display nothing, and that seems to work. And so my inventory component is here, and this is the thing where it updates the inventory bar. So when it's changed its own configuration, it goes through the bars, finds the slot. So that's the nasty bit, but after that it gets easy. So I then have a reference to a slot, which is the current slot. I set it to be invisible if the current index is greater than the length of things in the inventory. You can pick up extra things in the map. Just to go back to this. So you start off with 2 things. If there's a third class of thing and you pick it up, that will then become item 3. If you place all the things, the icon will remain, and that slot will be forever that thing. I mean, I could possibly change that so you could drop a thing properly, but I figure there won't be more than 8 things in a map that will be interesting to pick up. And I quite like the fact that you can reliably know that 2 is going to be a wall, whether you've got one, some or not. So if you pick up a wall later on, that's going to be 2 again. So these will fill up with the icons of things that you have at any point picked up in that level. I think before you start a level, there will be perhaps a process of choosing alternatives. Maybe there'll be a cost for each thing, and you can choose your loadout depending on what kind of game you want to play for a particular level. A bit of trial and error. So I want to leave that quite open. But whatever you've chosen to start the level with, that's here. And when you place them all, as I showed before, it updates the ×2, and then it's just not selectable, but it would be as soon as you knock something down. So that's just a design choice. Going back to the inventory, no, going back to the inventory. So what it does, other things it does, so you can set the visibility of a widget. I store the icon in my, I'm going to have to change this, but here's a typical entry, and you've got the class of thing and the icon. I wanted to pull that icon off the class, but I haven't quite sussed it out. If you get placeable class, here's the thing, get class defaults. It will get you the defaults for that class without you having to spawn something and then destroy it. So this is useful, except it only does simple types of things. It doesn't do user-defined things. So I've got I don't know what I've got on there. In my placeables, I've got an array. I did have things like, sounds, but those don't appear in neglect class defaults, so for some reason it's a very limited selection, so I couldn't do what I wanted. I've had to separately define the icon. That's then stuck in the brush, set brush from texture, and if it's not there, I've got a unknown question mark sort of thing. That shouldn't ever happen, but it might happen. I choose the color, set the brush tint color, that works, and then I have to find the canvas slot which holds the image, and that can be resized, and so I've got it that it varies size depending on whether it is a currently selected thing. So again, just to show you, when you select something, it gets bigger, just to try and distinguish things. So if you've got 2 things, it's more obvious which one is the currently selected one, is the hope. Let me see, what else was there? And the sounds I put in, you could hear the sounds hopefully. Some clicks for selecting, just simple stuff. And oh, there we go again. You hear that rip, and that sound, and the whole cannot comply. So I'm just starting to make it more of a the cat's sniffing my leg. I don't know if that says more about my cat or my leg. So I think that's more or less what I was going to show, just a little update. I'm happy to elaborate on anything, but it's mostly just ugly code. Where's it gone? Well, anyway, the controller event graph. Yeah, oh, there's the cat. Right, this might all go wrong at any point. But I can't say I'm proud of that. Oh, and this is the, if you press a key, it activates that slot, or at least it tries to activate that slot. What are you doing? Get off, get off. Let me just see if it works. Sorry, I think I've tried this. 2, 1. Yeah, it works, but it doesn't click. Yeah, okay, I think that's about it. Cheerio.